Hello everyone, my name is Sudarshan Roy. I'm a senior RDS architect in Amazon Web Services based in Melbourne, Australia. Today's topic I'm going to cover is how to do a near real-time database migration from Azure to Amazon RDS for SQL Server with one of our AWS partner tool known as Cloud Basics. So let's go and dive in.
So let's go through today's agenda. We will talk about at a very high level what are the different PaaS database offering available in Azure. Going to give you a quick overview about Amazon RDS for SQL Server offering. What is SQL Server Change Data Capture, which is a native SQL Server feature which allow to track incremental changes. And what is Cloud Basics, which is our partner tool which actually allow us to do near real-time replication from Azure SQL DB to Amazon RDS for SQL Server. Overall, how the solution reference architecture looks like, we're going to touch base that as well. And finally, we will conclude with few demos. Azure SQL Database have multiple offerings. One is Azure SQL Database, one is Azure SQL Managed Instance, and SQL Server on Azure VM. Azure SQL Database is a single database which represents a fully managed isolated database. A single database is similar to a contained database in the SQL Server database engine. They also get complemented with something known as Azure SQL Elastic Pool, which is a collection of single databases with a shared set of resources such as CPU, memory. Single databases can be moved into and out of an Elastic Pool. Azure Managed Instance has a near 100% compatibility with the latest SQL Server database engine and is fully managed service as well. Finally, SQL Server on Azure VM is like installing a SQL Server, full-blown SQL Server version. It can be Standard Edition or Enterprise Edition on Azure VM. But please keep in mind it's a self-managed database where the customer owns the operational actions. Amazon RDS databases have multiple popular database engines. It supports MySQL, PostgreSQL, MariaDB, SQL Server, Oracle. Uh, to give you a brief introduction about what RDS is all about, it actually makes it easy to set up, operate, and scale at relation database in the cloud. It provides cost-efficient and resizable capacity while automating time-consuming administration tasks such as hardware provisioning, database setup, patching, and backups. It frees you to focus on your application so that you can give them the fast performance, high availability, security, and compatibility they need. Amazon RDS is available on several database instance types, optimized for memory, performance, or I/O, and it gives you enough flexibility to choose what your actual requirement is. For today's session, our target state engine is SQL Server. Now, a lot of times we get this. A lot of times we get this requirement that what are the different migration approaches when I want to move databases from Azure to Amazon RDS for SQL Server. Now, as we know, the SQL Server have different blends. Like you have SQL Server on Azure VM, you have Azure SQL DB, you have Azure SQL Managed Instance. So, what is the right approach? So if your requirement is SQL Server on Azure VM to RDS SQL Server, our preferred migration tool will be AWS Database Migration Service, which is a fully managed service which is installed on an EC2 machine on your existing virtual private cloud in your AWS account or a new VPC, and then you configure multiple tasks and start doing full load and incremental data changes. Similar tool is also recommended if you want to migrate data from SQL Server on Azure VM to SQL Server on Amazon EC2. Now, when it comes to Azure SQL DB and managed instance, Azure SQL managed instance, and the requirement is to migrate those databases in near real time to RDS SQL Server, that's where we recommend to use Cloud Basics. Cloud Basics is a cross-region disaster recovery tool, which I'm going to go shortly in subsequent slide, but it supports change data capture and change tracking, which are SQL native features, and actually allow you as a customer to do a near real-time database migration. So what is Cloud Basics? It's a cross-region disaster recovery cloud-native service which supports near real-time migration. It's pretty user-friendly and it has a web console where you just need to log in as an admin and then you need to set up a replication job. I'm going to demonstrate that in my demo. It also has API calls just like any other AWS services. It is currently available in AWS Marketplace as well. So let's look into the solution design on how to actually migrate the databases to AWS Cloud. So on the left-hand side, you have Azure region where you have Azure SQL DB in the subnet, and you have on the right-hand side, you have AWS Cloud. You have a primary region, you have a DR region. On most of the cases, you don't need a DR region, but we thought to showcase that in case you want a cross-region replication of your database, then let's have a DR region in the slide. But most of the cases, you will see the primary region as the sole region because we provide multiple AZ support. Now, in this primary region, you can install a Cloud Basics on an EC2 machine on your existing VPC and then configure the replication job from the Cloud Basic Web Console and try to replicate the data from Azure to RDS SQL Server. Now, let's jump into demo. So here is the demo. I'm currently in Cloud Basics Web Console. I've logged in as an admin. Here you need to click on New Replication. Once you click on New Replication, the New Replication window will open up, which will show you the source and the different replication process which we need to go through. So here I have selected the source server as SQL Server, then click on Next. There are three options to select. One is SQL Server to SQL Server replication. One is if you want to migrate to Redshift or if you want to migrate your SQL Server database to an S3 data bucket in a Parquet or CSV file. For the demonstration, I have selected SQL Server to SQL Server replication. Now click on Next. Here we have three other options. One is continuous replication. If you want to do a full load along with incremental changes, then this is the option to select. For my demonstration, I have selected continuous replication. However, you have two other options as well. Like if you have a very large database and you want to take a backup to a S3 folder and then restore it to your target RDS SQL server, and then you want to only do incremental data changes, then you can select the continuous replication option. And finally, the last option is a one-time replication. It's very much like you just want to do one-time full load and you don't want to track incremental changes. So I will go back, select continuous replication, click on next. We'll select Azure SQL DB as under source connection. We'll give my Azure SQL DB endpoint the database name. I already have a login created. We'll enter the password. The location is in Americas, but you also have other locations to select, like Europe, Asia Pacific, Middle East, and everything. Now, if I go to target, I have selected AWS Managed. Select the endpoint from my RDS SQL Server. Selected, let's create the database here. The login will be Cloud Basics. Let's enter the password. Again, you can select different location where RDS SQL Server is available. It pretty much can pick up any destination region. Now, even for the edition, you have an option to select Standard, Enterprise, Web Edition, Express. Now, you go back here and click on Test Connection. This is must because it's actually check whether you're able to connect to your source endpoint and destination endpoint before we proceed. So connections are validated, you can proceed. If we scroll down, You will see that it's able to connect to the source Azure SQL DB and also destination RDS SQL Server. Now click on Start Replication. It says before I do this, I want to do one more step. Go to Advanced. You have an option here to give a replication job name. Then under Change Tracking Method, you can select Change Tracking or Change Data Capture. These both are SQL native features to track incremental data change. For my demonstration, I have selected Change Data Capture. The retention period you have is up to 30 days. I selected the default 2 days. You also, by default, have an option to encrypt data in transit, which I will recommend strongly to keep it on. There's another pretty cool feature we have in Cloud Basics is enable transparent data encryption. If your database is TD enabled databases and you want to replicate those, then you need to put a check mark here, give the certificate name and the algorithm name. For time being, I'm not using this feature for my demo, so I will just uncheck this. Go back and start the replication process. It says this login already exists, so I just click on proceed. It will ask that I'm going to enable change data capture as I understand and agree. Click on OK. So replication is running. This shows the status is running currently. It's going to create the scripts, going to create the tables on the destination end, and then going to start replicating the data. For a better visualization, we can click on tabular logs. And we can track how many records are currently being replicated. So let's give some time. It's generally take 1 or 2 minutes. So I can already see that the replication is completed. So you can see under process the status as success, which is pretty cool. Please ignore this error, SQL agent not running. Now let's go to the destination. Now let's open Management Studio. So in my Management Studio, I already have my Cloud Basic RDS SQL Server connected, and I also have my Azure SQL DB endpoint, which is this one. I will go here first and run this table. This is a table I have, address table. Now if I go to my RDS SQL Server, this table now also exists. This database also exists in the destination end. It's currently disconnected. It's now connecting. Yep. And now it's gonna execute the tsql statement. Okay. It's because I've selected master. I will select this test database, which was created on the destination. Okay. So what we'll do is that we're now going to update one particular record. So in this particular table, I have a record with address ID 25, which shows city as Dallas, state province Texas, country region Australia, postal code 3001, which doesn't sound correct, isn't it? So let's change it to say, and this one to 98011. Let's update this. Okay, it's now successful. Now if I run the same select statement again, I will see it has been updated. Now let's go to the destination, execute the same statement. You will see it has been updated as well on RDS SQL Server. Now let's kick off another demo.
So to summarize today's session, we discuss what are the different Azure database offering. We discuss what is Amazon RDS for SQL Server. We discuss what are the different migration approaches, what we recommend you to take when you want to migrate databases from Azure to Amazon RDS for SQL Server. We spoke about CDC, which is a SQL Server native feature. We also spoke about overall solution designing. And finally, we ended up with some demos. I hope you found this session useful and thanks for stopping by. Hope to see you soon again. Thank you.